Good evening, everyone. It's my joy to be with you all this evening. I see some old friends in the crowd and also a few new faces that perhaps don't know me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dharana, and I live at this place, which is outside the city. I noticed in the meditation this evening something that I'm not used to hearing with all the honking horns and so on. I'm used to hearing birds chirping and some other nature sounds, perhaps some monkeys or peacocks. This place is very, very convenient, and I'm not knocking this place at all, but if you want to enjoy some quiet and you're willing to travel a little bit, then do please check out this place, this is on the Lavasa Road. There's brochures out here, there's maps, and or ask me about it afterwards. I'd like to read from the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. This is a commentary by Paramahansa Yogananda on the Bhagavad Gita as remembered by Swami Kriyananda. And sooner or later my iPad will wake up. There we go. Okay. So this is from chapter 4, verse 28. And generally I'd like to talk on the need for the Guru and the value of the Guru on our spiritual paths. And there's quite a lot more that is said in this particular chapter and verse, but I want to focus on that aspects only. So I've excerpted a little bit here and there. Some offer up their possessions as oblations, some their actions. Others concentrate on withdrawing their energy by yoga meditation, offering it up as an oblation, and still others, holding strictly to a vow of self-restraint, offer up all their thoughts to God, practice introspection, and seek wisdom through study of the scriptures. In the commentary that follows, it says a lot of things, and I'm not going to cover all of them, but a few things I do want to quote, and then I'll talk about them. Without an experienced guide, even mountain climbing can be fatal, though death in this case only ends a single incarnation. Spiritual mistakes can be costlier in terms of long-range suffering. Guidance from the Guru is not only helpful, it is essential. Spiritual progress without the help of a true or sat Guru cannot be but slow, haphazard, uncertain, and sometimes dangerous. The ancient tradition in India, where spirituality has been studied for thousands of years, not as a religion, but as a practical science, practical in the sense of results actually accomplished, has always insisted that a true guru is the sine qua non for spiritual success. And those of you who are not perhaps as knowledgeable about Latin as I was, I didn't know this word. Sine qua non means that which with you cannot do, without which no success is there. There's no chance of success. So the tradition of India has always insisted that a true guru is the essential thing for spiritual success. Many spiritually ignorant people, even in India, insist that with literacy widespread today and with books so easily available, spiritual teachings are accessible to virtually everyone, and a guru is no longer needed. Truly, widespread literacy has had one unfortunate effect: the dissemination not only of knowledge, but of ignorance. I'm reminded of a quotation from Yogananda in regard to the fallibility of trying to follow only books. He said, if you are following a book and you interpret it wrongly, the book has no power, no ability to correct you. But the Guru has that ability. And I want to touch on what the Guru does for us. And there's two stories that are some of my favorites, but I want to bring out aspects that I think that I've at least not heard before. One was a story of a disciple, and it was a disciple who Yogananda had his headquarters in Los Angeles, California. Yogananda lived in America from 1920 until 1952, so many, many years. And one disciple who was, I believe, in charge of the center in Phoenix, Arizona, was traveling to visit and be with Yogananda for some time. And it was a long drive, and along the way he got hungry. And in that area of the country, and especially back in those days, it was even less developed than it is now, you can go a long way on the highway and not see much of anything. So he's getting hungry and hungrier, and finally comes to this restaurant. And he said, "Oh, hallelujah, a restaurant." But he goes in the restaurant, and he finds that there's nothing left that they can serve him at that late hour except hamburgers. And of course, Yogananda taught, everyone should be vegetarian. It's a good thing. And there's a saying that reason follows feeling. And I think he was feeling his stomach very intently. And so his reason followed that and said, "Oh, he'll never know." And then when he got to Los Angeles, or Encinitas, actually, and had this interview with Yogananda. Yogananda, everything in the interview was delightful. But at the very end of it, Yogananda said, "Oh, by the way, if you're ever traveling late at night and you come to a restaurant that only sells hamburgers, better not to eat anything." And the aspect of that story, I think most of us, especially those of us who've been on this path, have heard it a lot. But an aspect of that story I want to point out specifically. This implies, and another similar saying that happened to Swami Kriyananda. Swami Kriyananda, Yogananda corrected him about something that I won't go into. We're pretty short on time. But Swami Kriyananda exclaimed in surprise, "You knew." And Yogananda explained in order to make it clear to his disciple. He said, "I know every thought you think." Now, I want you to think about that saying, "I know every thought you think." And Swami Kriyananda went on to say that he proved it over and over and over. Whenever there was some thought that was out of attunement, that needed some slight correction, Yogananda would always catch it and would always point out that error to his disciple. And that ability of Yogananda's is still just as much alive today for those of us who are disciples, for those of us who are open to that correction, especially those of us who are requesting that correction. And think about it. I have had some wonderful friends in my lifetime. I think one of the best friends I've ever had was Swami Kriyananda himself. And he was always thinking out for me, looking out for me, trying to do what he could for me in everything. But he couldn't go through every thought that I thought in the day. How many people can do that for you? How many people are willing to do that for you? Another interaction with one of his disciples, I don't remember even what mistake the disciple made. But the disciple said to the Guru, to Yogananda, "You will forgive me, won't you?" And Yogananda was a little surprised and said, "What else can I do?" This is like he didn't explain this, but it's like a divine commission. And with another disciple, another disciple was apologizing for being very stubborn. And Yogananda said, "That's all right, I attract stubborn disciples." Yogananda was so accepting in everything, whatever mistakes people had made. He was there to come in and help them. Come in and, first of all, go through every moment of their days, see what needed correction, and see what ways he could help them. I want to tell a story from my own life. I found these teachings in Silicon Valley, California. And I had gone to Silicon Valley, California, because I was interested in becoming an engineer. And I thought I would find my happiness through an engineering profession. And I don't want to go into too much of that. But I found Yogananda's teachings when I was ready for them, thank God. I found ultimately that my engineering career still left what some people have called a God-shaped hole in my heart. And I was still missing that piece, and I was still hungry for that piece. And my boss at that career had suggested a particular bookstore. And I went there for years and years and years and years, and it became my favorite bookstore, never suspecting that bookstore was owned and run by Ananda. Fast forward many years, I ended up working at that bookstore because it felt more important to me to help people find the truth. And it was also very, very refreshing, I want to point out, to in America, there's every church that I'd found until then had one thing that they agreed on. I mean, some were Buddhist, some were Lao Tzu, some were, I tried a lot of different things. But they all agreed on one particular dogma, and that dogma never sat well with me. That dogma was that if you want to find God, if you want to find freedom, or heaven, or whatever it is, then you must belong to this church only, and everyone else is going to hell. And that never really it never had the ring of truth to it, to me. And when I found Ananda through this bookstore, mind you, I realized, okay, here's this bookstore run by a spiritual organization. They're offering every spiritual teaching I've ever heard of, and many that I'd never heard of. And it's like their attitude is not, oh, if you want to find God, you must belong to this church, but rather to find the truth that most resonates with yourself. And that was such a refreshing approach to truth that I felt immediately at truth and immediately at home. And I felt like I feel more at home here. I feel more at home with these teachings, more at home with this approach. So let me get back to the topic. I came to a point working at that bookstore where I just assumed that I would work there the rest of my life. And I never had any inclination or thought that I should be living somewhere else or doing something else. I was serving humanity in a meaningful way. But Guruji or Divine Mother or someone up there, I don't know who, realized that something else was missing in my character. I was born and raised as a very scientifically minded person, very intellectually minded person. When I first graduated from university, I was not fun to be with, because I was so arrogant and thinking that I knew everything because I'd taken all these hard subjects. I've heard that other graduates are also have this liability, but I still was not balanced. Sri Teshwar commented that that intellect is a two-edged sword, and it can either be useful or dangerous. Either you can use it to cut the boil of ignorance, or you can just as easily use it to decapitate yourself. So reason without feeling is missing something. And I was missing feeling in my life, but I didn't know it. Nothing in my reason was telling me that. But God knew that. And first, God arranged, because my intuition was not very developed, God arranged to put me in a predicament. And it wasn't a serious predicament, not life-threatening, but it was making me more and more desperate as the days went on, as the weeks went on. And I was desperate for an answer to this predicament. And then when I was ringing up a purchase for a customer, it was my turn at the cash register during that hour, this customer looks at me and says, "I'm supposed to tell you something." And all these alarm bells went off in the back of my mind. It says, "Who are you?" You know, but I'd been on the path for a couple of years by then, and I was open-minded in my relationship with truth. And I thought, okay, if this person thinks she has something that she's supposed to tell me, I should at least hear her out. Maybe she does. Who knows? So the first thing that she did, she said something that totally resolved my dilemma. It's like, duh, why didn't I think of that? And then I knew from what she'd said that she did have something to tell me, and that she could be a pure channel of truth for me. And then she said something that I think God or a guru or someone up there arranged the whole thing, you know, putting me in the predicament so that I could, you know, find someone who could solve it, and then open me up to, oh, I better listen to what this person says, because... And then she said, you know, for a person like you, it would be better if you could be in a place where you can be more in your heart and less in your head. And I thought about those words, and I thought, okay, I'm in Silicon Valley, filled with engineers. If you want to categorize what engineers are like, it's a group of people, you know, most prominent, probably more than anyone else, any other group of people. This is a group of people that are totally in their heads all the time. And I'd been one of them, and that's why I moved to Silicon Valley. And, you know, so there I was, surrounded by all these people in their heads all the time. And I thought, where on earth could I go? And then I realized, oh, I've got this ticket to go on pilgrimage to Italy. Maybe Italy could be a good place. In fact, Guruji, somewhere along the way, years earlier, had found a person just coming from Italy, put them in my next door neighbor's bedroom, and I was in a conversation with them, and they said, oh, you've got computer skills. They could really use people with computer skills in Italy, and it might do you some good. And so those words came back to me. And to make a long story short, I ended up moving to Italy. So I just, the point of that story is that God and Guru can see what our needs are and can address those needs. They can speak to us through a child. They can speak to us through anyone. They can especially speak to us through other Guru Bhais if we're open for that. So it's a matter of staying open to the Guru. a few more words for those of you, if there are some people in there out here who have not yet taken discipleship. There's also something called the Divine Matching Funds Plan. In the Divine Matching Funds Plan, I mean, we're all trying to find God. We're all trying to, escape our delusions, and so we're putting out efforts to grow spiritually in whatever ways we can. So the way the Divine Matching Funds Plan works is, we put out some effort in a good direction with sincerity. Maybe it's meditating every day. Maybe it's doing other spiritual things, karma yoga, service, whatever. And then the guru, if we have a guru, says, oh, you've put out some good effort. I'll match your efforts with my own efforts. So that's matching. That's good. But then God says, oh, here's a disciple. He's put out some efforts. Here's a guru. He's put out more efforts. I'll match that with equal amounts of grace. So it ends up being 25% what we do, 25% what the guru does on our behalf, and 50% the grace of God. Where can you get such a deal? Where can you get such a divine friend who's out there, analyzing your every thought, eager to correct it if it needs correction, eager to guide you forward in your life? My life took a very different turn in going to Italy. I found I met my future wife there. I got to serve with Swami Kriyananda directly. It opened up so many doors for me. So the blessings are there if we're open for them, if we're tuning into that. And for those of you, probably a lot of you already are disciples, like, this has nothing to do for me. Well, what can I do to increase my discipleship? What can I do if I am already a disciple? Each one of us can try to tune into the guru more and more. I have a perspective that Satan is not very polite, or Maya, or whatever. I mean, Maya just likes to throw stuff right in front of us and say, be tempted by this, be tempted by this. Maya is not polite, but the guru is polite. The guru says, if you want help, and if you're asking for help, then I'll help you. So every one of us can ask for help more of the time. And the more we ask for more help, the more we'll get more help, because we've opened that door. Gurus are so polite, they'll never come in that door unless we open it, unless we invite. Please guide me through this. There's a beautiful prayer. Yogananda said it was one of the highest prayers. I will reason, I will, I will act. But guide thou my reason, my will, my activity to the right course in everything. It's a beautiful attitude to have, and it's a beautiful way of getting our egos out of the way to be guided more and more by the divine. Swami Kriyananda tried to align his every thought with his guru's thoughts. And then after many, many years of that, he realized, that's not enough. And then he started trying to align his every feeling with the feelings of his guru. And towards the very end of his life, he got to a point where he said, I can no longer tell where Swami Kriyananda ends and where Yogananda begins. It's like they'd merged in their consciousness. And all of us have that same potential if we open up to it, to the extent that we open up to it in every minute of every day. Om.